Thanks very much. These are incredibly rich papers. I wish I had more than 10 minutes to discuss the very broad implications. Orville has done a very good job setting things up. But with time constraints, I'll just focus on a couple of things, mainly about what they tell us about state-society relations today, how all this relates to internationalization of China, and perhaps more generally U.S.-China relations. So I'll give a couple of examples as I go on. Now, in Jeremy's paper, a very interesting paper, a lot of things in there, he discusses the mix of popular activism, media sensationalism, and overt regulation that we now have, in a sense, and Orville talked about this as well. We have an unfolding negotiation among users, regulators, observers, and commercial opportunists all at the same time. State-society relations are no longer a one-way street. Society has developed a momentum of its own. After more than 25 years of reform, the state has to negotiate with public opinion, and Guoliang has some views on this as well. What you often have, therefore, is that the government will express an opinion, biao tai. They'll express an opinion against something, yet once they've expressed their opinion, they'll allow the banned phenomenon to continue. If it's popular enough, it'll continue to exist. There's a fear of going too much against public opinion, since it might affect an even more important overriding value, promoting social stability. This is why you see the ebb and flow of policy and culture with a lack of consistency. A lot of examples. Let me start briefly with Hollywood film as one example, something I study. If you look at surveys of university students, what films they prefer, it's very clear they prefer Hollywood films. The ones they like the least are mainland films for a variety of reasons. Yet there are only 20 films that can be shown, foreign films, that can be shown theatrically in China every year. And the Chinese government makes it difficult even for these films to compete with domestic films because they have blackout days during key holiday periods and other restrictions. So films like The Departed, Memoirs of a Geisha, Brokeback Mountain, all these are banned. Yet they're widely available on the streets for $1, even less than $1, in pirated editions, or now downloading. In fact, Chinese students laugh at me when I pay $1 for a film because they get it for free. They simply download it. So I'm being ripped off in a sense. The government has made a decision, but the government can't carry it out. They can't prevent it, nor does it want to prevent people from watching these pirated films. What you also see is a strange way that messages come out. For example, the film V for Vendetta was banned in China. Yet one of the most popular Chinese film magazines, and each film magazine of these glossy magazines has a poster each month. So, V for Vendetta is banned, but the magazine puts the poster for V for Vendetta, which says at the top, people should not be afraid of their governments, governments should be afraid of their people. Not exactly the message the Chinese government wants to hear, but this is exactly what you can do in China, especially if it's in English. If it's Chinese, they would have had more problems. You also have these glossy magazines. Jessica Alba was quite popular for some reason in China, but you have these very glossy magazines, quite inexpensive, for sale on the streets. Again, the government does not prevent that. I guess it's good for social stability. Let me give you another interesting example, and that's the first Chinese language edition of Rolling Stone magazine. It came out, one other thing I should say. If you ask the Chinese officials involved in film, like Madame Zhao, who's kind of the mother of all film bureaucrats in a way, in the State Administration of Radio, Film, and TV, I said, what do you want from Hollywood? Reciprocity. We want the United States to show our films, then we'll show more American films. So, as Jeremy talks about in his paper, they end up producing things like Wu Ji, The Promise, which Jeremy goes into in great detail, how much trash it is in his paper, and Curse of the Golden Flower, things of it. Very good film directors are now under great pressure to make these popular films that can succeed in the international marketplace. Another example, Rolling Stone came out in March 2006, and interesting issue, came with a free hat. It was interesting because they had negotiated before the issue came out that it would be a Chinese magazine. But here you see in big letters is Rolling Stone in English. And you have Cui Jian, the rock musician, and you have Mu Zimei, a blogger who writes about her sex life online. These are the lead stories. And the government was not happy. because Rolling Stone violated a tacit agreement, maybe even an open private agreement that was made. But the marketing was very interesting. The government said it was going to be shut down after one issue. 5 minutes, okay, I'll try. You had billboard advertisements, a print run of 125,000, these free hats, and so on. But there are larger issues involved, including such things as this large English language name on the cover. What was more interesting to me, though, is that the regulators said quite openly, this is going to be shut down after the first issue. But Hao Fang, the chief editor of Rolling Stone, the Chinese edition, said, doesn't matter what they say, you'll see the second issue in April. It'll be out. And in fact, it was out. But the difference, among many differences, was that there's no English on the title anymore. It's all Chinese. But you have the Rolling Stones on the cover. So that gives you an idea that this may be Rolling Stone. But so again, this is a kind of public negotiation that's going on. And this kind of negotiation is constantly going on in China, as Orville was suggesting, and Jeremy suggests as well. Okay. If there were time, I would talk about the Supergirl phenomenon. Western media's linkage of voting for this American Idol-style TV show to Chinese democratization. There's a new program coming out next month, this sequel called Boy's Happy Voice, broadcast again on Hunan TV. But the State Administration of Radio, Film, and TV has already said, put out a regulation, quote, no weirdness, no vulgarity, no low taste, no wailing and screaming. Judges are prohibited from mocking and humiliating contestants. Hairstyles, clothes, fashion, accessories, language, and manners should be in line with mainstream values, whatever that means. We'll see next month what happens. This is Supergirl.
Oh my.
But if there were time, I can also talk about, again, this negotiation issue. A new regulation has just come out from the Ministry of Culture saying all those employed in cultural professions have to undergo professional examination and apply for government-issued licenses. Those in the cultural professions are already fighting back, saying it's just another way for the ministry to get money from us by registering. The ministry insists, of course, it's only in order to build an advanced socialist culture. So the negotiation is already taking place. And Western marketing consultants are writing books about how smart business people in the West can succeed in this kind of market, this market where things are gray, as Jeremy puts it. So you have books like China's New Culture of Cool, Understanding the World's Fastest Growing Market and How You Can Penetrate It. And it's almost as if they read Jeremy's paper, because there's chapters on style, food, living, and mobility, and what the Chinese want and how you can sell it to them. Okay, the last thing, if I were time, I would talk about the rise of the middle class and what the role models and images are: overweight golfers, how you can become a member of the middle class. Very popular kinds of books now in China. I have to say something about the internet, because Guo Liang's an old dear friend of mine, and it's a very interesting set of PowerPoint slides. But one of his findings, and that's the main thing I want to talk about, is domestic news is trusted more than foreign news, and foreign online news is the least trusted. This is very consistent with other surveys I've seen. Friends of mine have done surveys and reports on this, and it's a tremendous change from the 1980s, when students in China were constantly telling me, we don't trust anything in the Chinese media, it's only the VOA and the BBC we listen to. Tremendous change. In this regard, this will be my last point, I think, major point, the argument that Zhou Yongming has made in his book and some articles, his discussion of what he calls reception context, and this gets to U.S.-China relations in a sense. It raises questions about Western influence in China and Chinese democratization. What Zhou is doing in his work, among other things, is to ask why well-educated, well-informed young Chinese are very skeptical about the information conveyed by the Western media. Good. 1 minute, just enough time. His answer to that, it has to do with the pursuit of national interest that is now commonly seen in China as an interpretive framework or dominant paradigm for understanding all state behavior, both Chinese and Western. Therefore, if democratization is advocated by Western nations, these nations must be doing it to further their own national interest, not because they sincerely believe in universal values. So he suggests that the key problem in China, in terms of Western impact on these issues, human rights and democratization, does not so much come from censorship in China. It's not a question of information people are getting. The information is there if they want to look at it. It's a question of the context they have for interpreting information. And until this dominant paradigm of national interest can be changed, any Western advocacy of democratization is not likely to be successful in convincing Chinese intellectuals of the worth of it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.